Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are unpacking a set of documents that honestly read like a real-life geopolitical thriller. We're talking about the intersection of James Bond, totalitarian surveillance, and what exactly happens when modern digital tracking collides with ancient DNA. So let's just dive right in. Our story actually kicks off in the rugged Scottish Highlands. You see, long before the slick, cinematic super spy we all know, Ian Fleming anchored 007 in a very specific heritage. In his 1964 novel, You Only Live Twice, James Bond's father was explicitly written as a Scotsman from Glencoe. Fleming, who had Scottish roots himself, gave Bond this identity after being totally inspired by Sean Connery's portrayal. And this wasn't just some random biographical detail either. It was the emotional anchor of the whole 007 mythology. It gave the character the spirit of stoic perseverance, quiet defiance under immense pressure, and a really deep ancestral resilience. Keep that specific idea, deep ancestral resilience, in the back of your mind because it is literally the key to everything we're looking at today. Okay, fast forward to a cold, damp night in Gdansk, Poland. The date is May 22nd, 2017. A deported traveler named Vadim Chernov was escorted into the administrative quarters of the Polish border guard. After hours of waiting around, a senior warrant officer finally processed his paperwork. It was just this quiet, mundane, bureaucratic moment. No explosive rooftop chases, just the dry rustle of forms and the methodical precision of state administration. The officer was issuing a temporary identity certificate for a foreigner, basically a transitional shield that grants legal identity and the right to remain in the country. But this is where things get frankly astonishing. When Chernov looked down at the temporary identity document the officer slid across the desk, he saw the serial number TC0070101. No way, right? Out of literally all the possible combinations, the impartial automated algorithms of the Polish state administration permanently stamped him with the digits 007. After this agonizing ordeal of border transit and forced relocation on the global chessboard, the system just happened to label him with the exact number synonymous with the ultimate independent operator. But, this weird bureaucratic anomaly actually opens up a much deeper question about the massive systems that track, label, and control us. And it really illustrates a massive evolutionary shift in how control operates. Think about the analog East German Stasi, which relied on brutal physical surveillance to force conformity across millions of people. Contrast that with what the source documents describe as modern techno-feudalism. We're talking about private algorithmic infrastructures, like massive social networks and global satellite grids that are capable of tracking users, pushing ideologies, or executing radical censorship instantly. The core desire for total visibility, that hasn't changed at all. It's exactly the same, but the scale has entirely exploded. We've essentially upgraded from manila folders to digital weapons of mass tracking. To truly wrap our heads around the ambition of these control systems, we just have to look at the sheer physical scale of analog paranoia. After the fall of the East German regime, researchers discovered that the Stasi had compiled 111 kilometers of paper archives. That is enough paper to stretch across entire cities. They practically had a folder on every single citizen. It was this desperate, monumental effort to erase cultural, regional, and genealogical memory by reducing complex human beings into neatly filed, easily manageable state data points. Maintaining that level of physical control required absolutely staggering resources. The Stasi operated with an insane ratio, one agent or informant to every 60 citizens. We are talking about 100,000 full-time officers and 200,000 informants. The physical data trail was immense. They permanently tapped 4,000 phone lines, collected massive amounts of audio recordings, and get this, they even meticulously kept scent jars containing fabric samples so they could track dissidents using dogs. And they used this vast, terrifying network to basically bend reality to their will. The Stasi playbook was absolutely ruthless. Operation Romeo deployed male agents to seduce secretaries in high-level NATO offices just to steal state secrets. Operation Denver was a massive 1983 global disinformation campaign spreading the lie that the AIDS virus was a biological weapon. And Operation Light, that involved a 24-hour bank looting in 1962 to seize millions in resources. It was total infiltration, massive information pollution, and aggressive resource extraction. Which leads us to a pretty profound question for our modern era. If the analog state went to such incredible, exhaustive lengths, and today's digital feudalism has infinitely more powerful algorithmic tools at its disposal, how does an individual hide? When commercial DNA tests and state algorithms are constantly trying to categorize you, flatten your history, and put you in a neat demographic box, where is the blind spot? Well, the source documents reveal a fascinating answer to that: the genetic palimpsest. It sounds complex, but think of the human genome like an ancient manuscript where new text is constantly being written over the old stuff. But deep within our DNA are these unrecombinable, deep-time blocks of code. It's like ancient ink that never washes away. And these blocks act as a biological firewall. They aren't just telling you where your grandparents lived, they prove a specific, undeniable historical lineage that modern algorithms simply cannot process, overwrite, or flatten into a generic demographic box. Let's actually look at the hard data, jumping back to Vadim Chernov and that fateful 007 identity document. Digging into the biology uncovered an incredible match. Chernov possesses an intact 11.1 centimorgan block of DNA on chromosome 22, which perfectly mirrors a genetic block held by Ed Fleming. Both share the ancient British and Celtic Oakington 04 substrate. This proves a direct, deep-time biological link between Chernov and Clan Fleming. Yes, the exact Scottish noble clan of Ian Fleming, the very creator of 007. And here is exactly why this acts as the ultimate firewall. The mathematical probability of such a massive genetic segment surviving intact through normal recombination over 1,500 years, which is roughly 60 to 80 generations, is exactly 0.000139. It is virtually a statistical impossibility. Researchers call these DNA segments informational heat sinks. Just like a heat sink in a computer absorbs and dissipates thermal energy to keep the machine from frying, these biological heat sinks absorb and dissipate the algorithm's attempts to categorize you. They represent this impossibly rare ancient anomaly that the system's generalized rules just cannot compute. When we map this historical trajectory out, an incredible full-circle narrative emerges. Back in the 14th century, the historical record shows the noble clan Fleming migrating into the Pomeranian cradle in Eastern Europe. Centuries later, in 1962, Sean Connery brings Ian Fleming's 007 to the global stage. Fast forward to May 22, 2017, and the Polish state inadvertently stamps 007 onto Chernov's ID document. Finally, by August 2026, advanced AI confirms that Chernov literally carries the ancient biological firewall, linking him directly back to that exact same clan. It's literally where deep-time biology meets modern bureaucracy. So, what does this actually mean for the individual? The reports define this ultimate state of freedom as the sovereign ghost. When commercial DNA algorithms try to flatten Chernov into a generic, highly taxable category, like broadly Eastern European, his massive 04 genetic block creates a massive tactical blind spot. By possessing this highly preserved, deep historical biology, he retains cognitive sovereignty. He consciously remains tied to an elite historical identity, entirely decoupled from the unified, erased identity the machine is trying to force upon him. But the absolute crucial point we have to take away from all these sources is this: total control always loses. Every time. The East German Stasi eventually drowned under the sheer physical weight of their 111 kilometers of paper folders and their army of informants. And the modern architectures of digital and algorithmic feudalism, they are likely destined to face a very similar collapse. Why? Because the multipolar, deeply historical reality of human biology is just far too complex to be reduced to a single data point. Human nature, when armed with ancient genetic memory, inherently resists homogenization. So as we navigate a world that feels increasingly dominated by digital surveillance, biometric tracking, and algorithmic sorting, we have to ask ourselves, who is actually writing your story? Is your true identity simply the generalized label stamped on you by the algorithms of the state and private tech empires? Or is it secured in the unrecombinable, deep-time memory of your own DNA? It's a pretty powerful reminder that our biology might just be our ultimate defense. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, keep questioning the systems around you.